Yo, what is up everybody? Welcome back to the channel for a brand new video. Now that the Vanguard beta is behind us, and even though Roster Mania isn't quite over yet, I think we know enough at this point to have a decent idea of how the teams are going to rank this year. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to rank all the teams entering the 2022 CDL season for Vanguard and see how it shakes out. So if you enjoy the video, let me know by leaving a like down below, and definitely leave a comment as well with your thoughts on how these teams will rank heading into next year. And also subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos of this one from me in the future. Most of my views do come from people who are not subscribed to the channel, so if you enjoy the content, keep coming back because you will definitely get more of it. So I do appreciate all of your support, and let's hop right into the rankings. So we're going to start off with the two teams who we still don't know what their roster looks like, and I should say that could change. This is being recorded on Thursday. You are seeing it on Saturday, so there's a small chance some of these teams could be announced, but I doubt it. And even if they do, we're going to talk about what they could look like. So of course that is the Paris Legion, and it's the vacant optics spot, the Chicago spot that Energy is trying to sell and probably will sell. Those two teams, of course, we don't know about them. However, I would say that if I was trying to rank them, I don't think I would rank them very highly because thinking about what free agents are remaining, there's not that many. You know, Vivid is definitely a top free agent. He is by far the remaining free agent, for sure. But beyond him, try to make a good team around him. I think the best I can think of, just off the top of my head, is probably Methods on the main AR, Paul X on the flex, Vivid on the sub, of course, and then maybe like Saints or Pentagram from Challengers to be alongside Vivid there. So that's not a bad team, don't get me wrong, but that's not a B or an A minus tier team or anything. Like, that's still towards the bottom. I'd probably have them in C regardless. Like, no matter what team they can make, I can't see it being above C just because there's not many players left. But I could be wrong. You know, when the roster is announced, maybe I'll change my mind. But for now, we're just going to leave them as question marks because we really don't know what to expect from them since we don't know the roster. And for the rest of these, we're just going to go in the order they're presented on the screen. You know, I'm not going to go tier by tier, just in the order they are in. So we'll start with the Atlanta FaZe. Of course, they are in the S tier. What can you say? They have the best individual talent of any team. They have the two, maybe even the three best individual players in the world, and a great main AR leader to rally the troops there. So overall, of course, they're the defending champs. They have the best talent. They have the best support, coaching staff, all of that. FaZe, by far, S tier. Moving on to Florida, man, it was a disappointing offseason for the Florida Mutineers. They are probably the only team, definitely the only team who I would say got worse. Like, they lost Neptune. They have Yeez and Havoc as their subs right now, but there is some rumors that Dave Patty's coming over on a main AR, Skies to a flex, Wake to an SMG, and then one of those subs would be a substitute. But either way, I can't see a good team being made out of those five players. Between Dave Patty, Skies, Wake, Havoc, Yeez, whatever five they would pick, I still think they're towards the bottom. And it's not that I don't like the players. Like, I think there's good individual players. I am actually very high on Yeez. I like him a lot. I just don't see how they can compete with some of these top teams consistently. So I will have Florida in the C/D tier, probably D, honestly. Toronto Ultra, this might be a surprise. I'm not going to put them in S. I'm going to put them in the A+ tier, and that is mostly because these players, while they were very good last year, don't get me wrong, they were like elite individual players. How many of them have been elite for multiple titles now? I would say 0. Now, you can say Cammy and Kleenex, they were very good. You know, they were pretty good in Modern Warfare. They were not elite, though, in my opinion. Insight, of course, was a rookie, and then Bance, he's the only one who's been doing it for a while, but we've also seen from Bance over his career where he has some games where he's very good, he has some games where he's not so good. So it just depends what we see from the Vanguard and how this team plays in Vanguard. I do still think they're going to be very good, though, because they have such that good teamwork environment set up. The system there is phenomenal. Even if they aren't as good individually in this game as Cold War, they should still be a very good team because they're super talented, they communicate well, they have chemistry, all of that. Still a very good team. I just am not 100% certain they'll be up there. I'm like, 90% sure, but I'm not going to say 100, so I'll leave them in A+ for now. LA Thieves, this is a good squad. I'm going to put them in the A- side. They could maybe go down to B, but probably not because they're very good. Look at this team on paper. I mean, you have Octane and Envoy, main AR, SMG, two very good individual players in those weapon classes. Then we have Draza and Kenny. The good thing about them is they are both like the truest definition of flex players, where if this team needs to run 3 ARs, they're in good shape. Octane, Kenny, Draza. If they need to run 3 SMGs, they're in good shape. Kenny, Draza, Envoy. So either way, there's a lot of versatility here, and I think that's going to work out well for this team. One thing that does worry me maybe a little bit is the entry sub role. That's going to be Draza's role, and he can run it. He's probably not as good as he is as like a aggressive AR or a roaming sub role, but that's going to be his job, and if he plays it well, that's like the biggest wild card for this team. So they could move higher, they could move lower if their roles don't mesh well, but for now, I think they are definitely comfortably in that A- tier range. Next up, the Seattle Surge. I'm going to put them in the CD tier with Florida, but I'm going to put them ahead of Florida because right now I do think they're a better team than Florida. I think they're probably going to be right around the same caliber of team they were last year, where they were decent on land. Sometimes they would pop off and surprise you. Other times they would get smoked. There is a lot of talent, though. Don't get me wrong. You know, accuracy, Sib, Pred, and Mac. Sib and Pred coming over from Challengers, two extremely talented, you know, highly sought after prospects. Very good players. Mac has had his ups and downs. You know, last year in Cold War, he was pretty good at times. Other times, not so much. And then accuracy, he has a lot on his plate with this team because think about it. He has to be like the in-game coach of this team pretty much. He's probably going to be the main communicator. There's no doubt in my mind he will be. And he also has to be the main AR in a league where, you know, all the other main ARs are extremely good. So he has a lot to do. He has to focus on his own individual talent and his own individual play while also trying to keep all of his teammates together. So there's a lot on Lamar's plate. But if he does it well, that definitely raises his stock because it's not going to be an easy task for him to do whatsoever. So lots of gun skill here. Definitely, though, have to see how the team meshes with their roles. Mac is going to be a full-time SMG. He was decent at that in Modern Warfare. Last year, he was on a sub at the beginning of the year, not so much. You know, he struggled some. So we got to wait and see the team. But overall, they definitely have a decently high, like maybe top 6-ish ceiling, but also a low floor because there is some recipe for disaster here. So overall, it kind of balances out into that C tier range. Moving on to the New York Subliners, this is a team that I'm going to put in the A- tier, but I will have them ahead of the LA Thieves. This is just a quality team for me, you know, for multiple reasons. First of all, the SMG duo is nasty. Hydra and Neptune can be a very good SMG duo, one that can give a lot of teams a lot of problems. Of course, I guess you could say there's some risk there because Neptune last year was inconsistent, and it was, you know, his first time really competing in COD, and he played well, don't get me wrong, but there's always a chance where, you know, a new title, a new game, he could drop off a little bit, but I think he'll be okay. And then you have, of course, Clayster and Crim6, just that awesomely smart, good leaders, and just still very talented AR players. Also, when you think about Neptune, you know, he's a guy who just came over from Halo. He's still learning how to play Call of Duty. Like, truly, he's getting by on his raw skill. Learning from Clayster and Crim should really get the best out of him, in my opinion. I think the one worry with this team could be if there are cases where they have to run a third SMG, they could struggle. Now, Crim, don't get me wrong, he can definitely pull out a third SMG situationally. But if there are like full entire maps where there should be a third SMG, I think New York would probably struggle in those maps if they had to play them because Crim's a guy, like I said, he can pull out an SMG, but you probably don't want him on that role full time. However, based on the beta and the way it played, I don't think we're going to see a ton of truly 3 SMG metas. I think it should be 2 AR, 2 SMG, and New York should excel in those areas. So overall, I'm definitely high on them. New York should be in for a good year. Moving on to LAG, I'm going to put them A- as well. Maybe you could think B. I guess I could see that. And I'm considering moving them ahead of LAT. I don't think I'm gonna, but I could definitely see the argument. However, thinking about what's on this team, it's a very good team. Slasher and Gunless, awesome AR duo. 2 of the most talented ARs of all time. Of course, last year wasn't really their year compared to some previous titles for them, but they were still very good. Slasher came back from the bench towards the end of the year, and he played really well, especially on LAN. You know, he always shows up on LAN in big moments. That was never a surprise. Gunless didn't have much team success last year, but individually he was still strong. So I'm not going to write off Gunless yet. He's a very talented player. Honestly, one of the most talented players of all time. You know, I think he'll be fine back in a better system where the team should be a little bit better than it was in Seattle, of course. And the SMG duo, this is probably where the risk lies. We have Hook and we have Asem. And the thing that worries me here is Hook and Asem kind of both play the same role. I think like that route man, you know, the roaming guy who can just go on a flank and make some plays. One of them will have to not do that. I would say Hook probably will stay on that role, and Asem is probably more likely to switch over to the entry sub. And he can do it, don't get me wrong. I just don't know how well he'll do it right away. So I think there could be some growing pains with this team at first. Then once they come together, they'll be pretty nasty. They can definitely compete for titles, in my opinion. They just have veterans who are, they all know how to play the game. They can all mold their play styles to buy into a team environment, kind of like Ultra, where they have that good system going. LAG could do the same thing. They have a lot of smart minds. They're going to communicate well. Overall, super high on LAG. I can see them being higher than this. I'm going to have it right now. I have them at number 5. They're going to fall to number 6 by the end of this. Spoiler alert. But they could be higher. Like, they can definitely compete for a top 3 spot, in my opinion. They're a very good team. Lots of talent and lots of smart players. Next up, we have London. They're going to go in the B tier for me. This is a team that they're probably the team that I'm most excited for just to see how they look because the prospects they picked up are incredible. Nasty and Gizmo were awesome in EU Challengers this year. If you did not watch them much, you should get familiar with them because they're probably going to surprise you if you don't know them yet. They are super talented players. Of course, last year, Afro was just out of his mind towards the end of the year. He came on very strong. And then it's good to see Zero back in there. He hasn't played, of course, you know, since Modern Warfare, but still a super talented player, kind of like Gunless, one of the most talented AR players of all time, a very true flex player. He's going to be their main AR, but he can do really anything you ask of him. Just a super smart player, versatile, good leader. He's going to be the leader for this team because the rest of those guys are all young and pretty new to the scene, whereas Zero's been around for a while now. So overall, very good talent. The All-EU team, I'm excited for them. I can see them competing in that top 6-ish range at some events. They could do lower sometimes too because they do have so much, youth. They don't have a ton of experience, but just on talent, very good team. I'm excited to watch them. Joining them in the B tier will be the Minnesota Rocker, but I will put Minnesota ahead if it lets me. There we go. Minnesota's a team that, of course, they came on strong. They won the Stage 5 Major last year, and that was enough to get them to stick with their roster, and I think that could hurt them in the end. I won't call the Major 5 win a fluke, but I will, say I don't know how repeatable it is because they're talented players, don't get me wrong, but there is just teams with more talent than them, whereas a lot of these other teams got better this offseason, like New York and both LA teams. Rocker didn't. I mean, they just stayed the same, and that's a risk. It could have some reward in there. Who knows? I think Standy, he'll be their best player. We've only seen him compete in one title, but he was so good at Cold War that I'm sure he'll be their best player moving forward. Major Maniac, Priesta, and Attach, I'd say they were all pretty inconsistent last year. Attach probably a little bit more consistent, but still, they all had their ups and downs, and if they have their downs all at the same time, this team's not going to compete next year. But if they all got going at the same time, we saw what happened in Stage 5 of Cold War, they can win. So I'm going to have them in B for now. I don't know. Maybe they'll get better. I just think it was a risk to stick with their roster. They probably could have upgraded at some spots. They did not, and we'll see how it pans out. But for right now, I do have them in the B tier. And last but most certainly not least, we have the Dallas Optic, whatever they're going to be called. I'm going to put them all the way at the front of that A- tier. This is a team just like London. I think other than London, this is the team that I'm just most excited to see how they look because there's so many questions and we want to see how it plays out. But just the individual talent, I mean, super phenomenal team. Scump and Shotzi, awesome SMG duo. Scump for the first time in, other than Envoy and Modern Warfare, he's going to have a truly elite SMG duo with him. It's been a while. It's pretty much never happened other than Envoy and Modern Warfare. So that's going to be good to see. Then, of course, Dashy and Illy on the ARs. That's an interesting duo. They have all that chemistry from playing together, way back in the day when they were younger and not even old enough to be in the league. And what interests me here is Dashy on a main AR, I think, has the potential for disaster, but also the potential to really raise this team's ceiling. Because if you have a main AR who can play as fast, as aggressive, and can get as many kills as Dashy can, you should be in pretty good shape. So the rest of the team is going to have to play fast, but if they can keep up with Dashy and sort of that pace that he sets, like if they can make it where Dashy is the slowest player on the team, they're going to be solid. I think in search, they'll be very good. I think all four of them are just truly elite search and destroy players, at least from last year. Illy had his struggles, but over multiple titles, we've seen he can be very good at search and destroy. So, good search team, high potential for respawns with their slaying abilities. They will have to make sure they are working together, communicating well, and they have a good system in place. But if they do, their talent should get them very far. I mean, just very talented players. Get Rambo coaching them up, and they should be solid. So overall, this is how the tiers look. I think it was kind of weird. Some people would probably just have Ultra up in S with FaZe. I didn't do that. I just don't think they're there with FaZe right now, but I also think they are clear of the number 3 through 6 teams. So there's kind of a mosh pit in that A- range. All of those teams, along with Ultra, I can see in that 2 to 6 range. But right now, I do think FaZe are clear number 1s. Minnesota and London, they're not quite in line with like LAG and LAT, but I do think they're definitely clear of Seattle and Florida, so that's why I have them in B. Then Seattle and Florida, rough offseason, especially for Florida, not what we wanted to see from them. Thought they would improve some, they did not. And finally, Paris and Chicago, we just have to wait and see. So that's going to do it for the video. If you enjoyed, let me know by leaving a like down below and leave a comment as well with how you rank some of these teams approaching Vanguard. And also subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos like this one from me in the future. I do appreciate all of your support so much. So I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you have a good day today. And I'll talk to you guys in the next video.